Hey, sister.
Hey, sister.
Join me, Courtney Lewis,
And me, Carley Ferguson,
in our conversational podcast about everyday situations.
You can count on us to tell it to you straight with our own sisterly spin.
Consider this a phone call with your own Southern sisters as we discuss with you personal accountability, healthy relationships, managing responsibilities, and contributing to society.
Each episode will consist of straight talk and a call to action.
Your sisters are calling.
Thanks for answering. Welcome to Hey Sister. This is episode 22, Freshen Up Your Space. Before we get started with today's call, we need to do a little housekeeping. For all of you that listen, sometimes it's nice to have something to reference as well that you can read. And I just want to let you know that Courtney does a fantastic job on our show notes. So this is a little plug. If you want to reference our show notes, that's a great way to see the time markers, what point we're saying certain things. So if you want to go back and listen to something more specific, you can pick up from that point. And she also includes a lot of really good insight of what's going to be said. So you get a little glimpse into what we're going to say. Also, all of the referenced links or products or accounts in the show will be linked in the show notes. Just a little plug there for those that need the written as well. And I want to check back with you, Courtney, because in our episode Purge, I asked you how that garage sale went or how you felt after you got rid of all these things. So you said, come back to me in a couple of weeks. So this is me coming back to you in a couple of weeks. Good on my word.
Well, I appreciate you coming back to me because when you asked me that question, I feel like I was still experiencing a little bit of separation anxiety from trying to purge my house, which is something that I don't do very often. I don't feel like I'm proficient at. So when you were like, well, don't you feel so much better? I really wanted to say, yes, it's so freeing, but it just wasn't true in that moment. It was just too fresh. It was like a fresh wound. I didn't know if I was going to be okay. So I just want to report it has now been a couple weeks and I'm surviving without those items and thriving. Life is wonderful. And I do feel more free. I do feel less stressed because I feel like my house is clearer and cleaner and I can see more of my house. And I'm also more motivated to continue purging. So it's been wonderful that ever since that happened, I feel like we've been able to tackle these other episodes about organizing and about cleaning. And today's episode with freshening up our spaces, I'm just really excited to continue with that because I'm happy to report that I'm happier since doing that purging that we talked about in episode 19.
Way to go. Super proud of you, sis. Okay, now with those housekeeping items taken care of, it's time for some fun. Today, we have on as a guest expert, someone who I love dearly, and now as a sister, my sister-in-law, Tiffany Fatheree. Tiffany is a truly creative and compassionate soul. She was a radiology technician, then bravely pursued her creative talents, founding Jute and then doing interior design for many clients. She is the owner and founder of the Findery in Waco, Texas. As it says on their website, the Findery is a medley of goodness for you, your home, and your style. The Findery family is made up of 3 shops living under one roof. So no matter your style, you will be sure to find that perfect something, carefully curated and uniquely stocked. You will leave saying, wow, every time. From uncommon finds for your home to the statement pieces for your closet, the Findery will quickly become your favorite place like home. I can attest to that. Tiffany is a wonderful daughter, sister, wife, mother to 2 great kids, and 3 English labs. We have had the opportunity to live with Tiffany while closing on our house, and I can say her home is always a beautiful, fresh, welcoming, and comfortable place to be. With all of that, Tiffany, welcome to Hey Sister.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and excited to share about freshening up your home. I see that all of you have been decluttering and making room for other things in your life. And I think that's a great way to start and freshen up your home. Spring is a wonderful time to start that with all the new blooms and everything in the air. I think people are ready for a fresh start.
Totally.
We're so glad you're here to give us this fresh start. I feel like we've had this month of a lot of work. I mean, we've been talking about purging and cleaning and organizing. And now that you're here, tell us, how do we get this new fresh start?
So there's lots of ways. I think lots of people have different opinions on this. I think it's really important to do what you love. Too many people try to follow the rules. There shouldn't be rules. It should be what you like and what you love. That's what makes a home your home, and that's what makes it your space. So I think the first thing is to take a look around your house and walk through the front door like a guest would. And I think the first place to start is the walls. So I say if you're young, you can look at the walls and you can see every little detail in all the spots that your kids and marks that they have put there over the years. If you're old like me, I think I turned 43 and then realized I don't have to look at anything unless I want to turn the lights on and put my glasses on. So if you don't want to see it and you're not ready to make the change, don't put the glasses on, don't turn the lights on. We'll start with the walls. I think a lot of people come in and they ask me where to start. No one knows where to start. And if you do, then you think you do, and then you change your mind. For me, I think a great place to start is with color. It's important to pick a color you like, but I also think that it needs to be a color that can go throughout your house. I think it's really important to keep your house cohesive in color, and also in looking at what the purpose of that room is. You want to be intentional about the color. For me, my favorite colors are greens and blues. So I think it's really important that you pick a main color and you use that one color throughout every room. It doesn't have to be your main color, but it needs to be in every room. If you have a playroom, you may want something more bright and fun, but you want to bring that blue into it or that green into it. I've gone into houses where you see that they've got bright yellow on one wall in this room, and then you go into the next room and it's red. But if you want your house to feel fresh and like it's done intentionally and cohesive, then you need to take one color throughout the house. Another question is, I don't know what that color is. And if you want it fresh, people will have different opinions on this. I am not one for a taupe or a cream. I think it's important to go with a fresh color and a white. Sherwin Williams has a great white. It's called Alabaster White. It's not too white, but it's not off-white. So I have different color choices and different colors if you want gray or if you want blues or greens. So we can talk about that later. But I think it's important to pick a color that is so important and that you love and that your family loves, that can work in every room.
I really love that point. I don't feel like I am very bold about my color choices necessarily. I like consistency in a home, but when we actually first bought our home, the walls were white and there were fingerprints from the previous family. And I thought, well, my kids are 10 years younger than those kids. Better believe those fingerprints are going to be double and triple that quantity and lower. So it's just going to be the exact same thing and lower. And so I thought, well, I can't do white, especially because that paint color was flat as well. I was like, well, definitely can't do white, definitely can't do flat paint. It made it easy for me to know right off the bat that we were going to have to go with something
Eggshell.
Yeah. I was like, we need an eggshell or even a semi-gloss, because I was like, we can't do flat. We can't do that shade of white. We ended up going with a balanced beige color is what it was. And it's worked out for us. But I like your perspective too, that having something fresh is great and finding that right color, which is right in line with what our mom actually talked about a few episodes ago on episode 18, which was Home Sweet Home. She was talking about paints. And when I was telling her that we were going to be having another episode diving more into paints, she was like, no, just don't forget the one rule that I always have is keep those paint colors nearby so you can touch it up. Aside from having paints that you can touch up if there's a scuff or keeping paints nearby, what other tips and tricks do you have for these paint colors that you keep throughout your home?
You think you're going to remember the paint colors, you're not. So I absolutely say keep a binder with all the paint colors as far as your baseboards, your wall color, your semi-gloss or whatever. It probably is not going to match over time if you wait years in between. But at least if you need to paint a whole wall, then you have that paint color, because you will forget. If you try to match it, it's not going to match well. But if you already have a color in your home that you love, then you can just freshen that up. Keep that color in a binder, keep it written close so you can just freshen it up. But if you want to add color in other ways, I think it's important. I am a very neutral person. I like neutral colors. I have white on my walls. It is flat paint. I would have not done that if I had painted it originally, because flat, as you know, it stains the walls. I would absolutely go with eggshell. But I think it's important to bring a little color so you can change that throughout the seasons. And that's another way to freshen it up, is by bringing in the color through your accents. It doesn't just have to be your wall. It can be your pillows, or it can be curtains that you want to change. Another way to freshen up your space is by bringing in different floral colors and patterns and vases. My daughter, I was talking to her tonight about how she would freshen up a space and what she thinks that means. And so her first reaction was, I think it is when people come into your home and they have a scent. They smell that smell that you have in your house. And I think that can be intentional as well. I think a lot of people automatically have that smell the way they cook or the way that they do. Like, I think mine is always bleach and clean cotton because I use lots of Tide Pods and I use lots of bleach. And so everyone comes in our house and it's like, it smells like laundry. Well, it does, but it's also intentional because I use wax melts and that's the way I want my house to smell. So when people smell that on our clothes or anything else, they're like, oh, that's what your house smells like. It is what our house smells like. So it can be through candles, it can be through wax melts, but it can also be through cleaners. If you want that to be intentional and you cook with a lot of curry or you cook with a lot of spices, be intentional about what candles you choose or what scents you like, what scents you want to represent your home. I think that's a good way to freshen up the space.
Totally. I love that.
Awesome perspective. Tiffany, what are your thoughts on wallpaper?
So I think wallpaper used to be a thing of the past. I don't like conventional wallpaper because I think it's really hard to change. It's expensive. But the best thing about today is that they have invented peel and stick wallpaper. If you haven't used it, it's amazing. It's a godsend. So you just need to make sure that your walls are flat enough. And if they're not, you need to sand them down just a little bit if it has texture on it and then wipe it really good. But it's removable. If you mess up, it's not hung right. All you have to do is take it off and you put it back on and it sticks. It doesn't come off. I have it in bathrooms. I wouldn't do a whole room with it every wall, but I would totally do an accent wall with it, whether it's seagrass or it's a really busy design. I don't think you can go wrong if it's a small space or if you're just doing one wall. I think peel and stick wallpaper is the thing to use. It's amazing.
Well, I love that. And I think it's more accessible because, like, talking about paint, I love to paint. We have painted multiple homes now, and I love that process, but it's pretty messy and having little kids around, hard to do. So knowing that there are other options that you could look at and be like, okay, if I could add this element into the room, that'd be great. And knowing that it is renter friendly, it's all those things, it helps too, to know that you can do that.
Speaking of painting with kids, I was on a design job and I brought your two little ones and we turned our heads for just a second and Zeke decided to play in the roller. We were in a client's house. Luckily, it was a friend, but he had that roller all over his body, all over his clothes. It was a mess. So it is kind of challenging with little ones.
Yes, a little dangerous. They're pretty unpredictable, especially my two.
When you're saying you love painting, Carley, I'm like, how can you love that? When we bought our house, that was the first thing I was like, well, we need to cover all the walls, this flat white paint. And then when it wasn't white, it was yellow and red. We called it the ketchup mustard house because it was bright yellow, bright red. And so we were like, well, we've got to get it painted. So after we closed, we just had painters come in and paint it. We knew having 3 kids that were 3 and under, there is no way we're going to be able to tackle painting this. So I'm impressed, Carley, that you love painting because I could not even begin to consider it. I just thought mental stress.
You've had to see her multitask. She can do anything with 3 kids.
I guess I should put an asterisk there because I'm thinking in terms of some DIY house remodel things that we did that were much more laborious. And so considering how straightforward painting can be with such a great change by the end, you get a very big contrast to what it was before. I really like that. I like those aspects of painting while the process itself, it's a good workout and a lot of time and prep.
Oh, and you like creative stuff.
So Tiffany, when should we freshen up spaces? Do you find that decorating happens once and for all, or is it ongoing?
I think it's important for decorating to be ongoing. I think so many of us have houses that we have for a little while, but eventually want to upgrade or we want to change or our needs change. It doesn't matter what time of the year. For me, it always seems like it's in the spring when I'm cleaning and I always want to do something different. But I think that it's important for it to be ongoing. I always tell my clients when they come in, they're like, where do I start? What can my budget be? It's so easy to get lost in the TV shows that we have now where people's budgets are $100,000 and they can renovate their entire kitchen. And that's a great way to freshen it up. Most of us cannot do that. Most of us need to set a budget, whether it's monthly or yearly. Like for us, we do a yearly budget. This is how much we want to spend on freshening up our home this year. So it doesn't matter when we start, but I think it's really important to have, whether it's $2,000 or less, and say, okay, this year we're going to work on the bathroom. It doesn't mean we can do the whole bathroom, but maybe this year we can paint the bathroom, or maybe this year we paint the cabinets, or maybe this year we put a new tub in. You don't have to do everything at once. I think that's so important for people not to get overwhelmed on the cost of bathrooms and the cost of remodeling and refreshing your home. I think you do little projects at a time, and depending on what that budget is, that allows you to know what you can do and what you want to focus on that next year. It also helps, like I said, with resale value later on, where you're not looking at a house and having to do a total redo, or when people come in and they're like, I'm going to have to totally gut this house. You can do little changes, and it can be neutral changes. So when you do have new buyers that come in, they don't have to totally change the whole paint palette or anything of the home, but you have made those upgrades, but not spent so much money all at once. I just don't think that's realistic for most of us.
It's definitely not. And it can be overwhelming when you're looking at your home and you're going, I want to tackle it all. Because in some ways you feel like if you don't do it all at once, then the work you do is going to be negated, because you're like, but then I'm going to have to start from scratch. So you're almost overwhelmed by the project, because you're like, but if I do the walls and then we change the tub, what if we're going to have to touch the walls up? And you almost don't want to paint the walls before you do that next step, because you don't know if you're going to be able to keep the walls fresh. But I like what you're saying is just do it, because that's one step further that will motivate you to keep going in a way. And it keeps the space looking fresh in the meantime.
I totally agree. And Courtney, what you're saying, too, about not wanting to do this without this, or you're going to have to make changes if you only do this year. I think a really important thing is not to go with really trendy things. If you look at the tiles in the past that people have picked, they're beautiful and they're really trendy. They're not going to last for years. So you really want to go with something classic and not something that's trendy that's going to be here for 5 years, because you're not going to redo your bathroom in 5 years. That budget is probably not going to be there. So you do want to pick something that's classic, and you do want to pick something that is going to be timeless, because you don't want to have to redo your bathroom every few years, or your kitchen backsplash, or your tile. I think it's important, especially with those more expensive freshen ups, that it's something that is timeless.
Especially for those things like you're saying, the tile, the things that are really built into the space. You wouldn't do a really bold, maybe cabinet color even at that point if you're worried about what that cost will be, but you could include that color that you really love in those other elements that you referenced.
You're really good at painting out your pulls and your handles and doing things like that. So I think it's really important to stay on budget, not to be overwhelmed, and just to start with one project at a time. You don't have to do everything at once, and take your time, make a budget, pick what you want to do this year and next year, and just start making those changes subtly. And if for some reason you have more money in your budget that year, then you can go on to the next step. But it's a really good way to freshen your space up, whether it's paint or whether it's tile. But keep it simple. Don't go trendy, and make it what you love.
I really like that thought, the don't go trendy, because that actually is like a huge aha for me, because I feel like that's all you do when you look on Pinterest is you're looking for what's currently trending. And so that whole thought, I think you can still be trendy without doing some elaborate project. Like you're saying, the tiles in your bathroom that are this mosaic tile or maybe super high contrast or whatever might be trending right now this second.
Yeah. Fill and stick wallpaper. It's affordable. It's easy to change. You can change it in a year, and you're going to be out $300, not thousands of dollars.
Good point. So other than that, what other philosophies have you had over the years of learning how to decorate that have helped you and that can help our sisters? Because I know there's a lot of people who don't really know where to start because they don't feel like they're a decorator. What are your personal philosophies there?
I think it has a lot to do with believing in yourself. We're all talented in different ways, and God gave us all gifts that He created us for His purpose. I believe as a twin, it's so funny to see what her talents are and my talents are. They're totally different. She'll see something and be like, I have no idea what to do with this, where I'll be like, oh my gosh, you can do this and you can do that. And for her, it's overwhelming. So I totally understand the other side of that. But first, I think it's really important to stick with what you like. And it doesn't matter about the rules or what is trendy. If you do what you love, you're not going to mess up. I think that a lot of people, and I have realized this with clients, I'll be working with clients on what they want and what they like. And for the most part, they are pretty good at picking and telling me what they like. I'll say, you want this or do you want that? And once we put it all together and we have a game plan, they realize that their first choices were so much better. If they would believe in themselves, they are so much better than they ever believed they could be. I will work with a lot of them. They're like, I'm so bad at this. I cannot decorate. And by the end of the whole process, I'm like, you've got this. You do not need me. You have this. And they have so much more belief in themselves. And I think that's really important, just to believe in what you like and listen to what those inner thoughts are and what those things are, because you probably will surprise yourself that you are better than you think you are.
I love that, because truly the home is a reflection of you. As you talk about building that confidence in yourself, I think that will exude from you. As people come in the door, you're going to feel more comfortable and confident in your home because it's curated by you. You feel connected to these pieces because you chose them, or you had that vision for those things, instead of it being something like Courtney said that maybe you just picked off of Pinterest and said, I really need this type of mirror because that's what they say I need to have. It's like, no, is that something that really speaks to you? Because if you really like it, then that's a really good thing. And I talk about this a lot, that I love finding things because I like them and not because someone else told me to. So I really love that feeling of believing in yourself and doing what you want to do.
I agree. And I think that it's really important not just to hang something on the wall because you found it at Home Goods or you found it somewhere and you're like, oh, that might look good because I have this empty space. I think it's important to know it always takes me 2 to 3 years to fully get my house where I want it when I move in a new house. It doesn't have to be done all at once, because I'm not going to go to stores, or even because I have a store, and find everything I want for my home. I think it should be important. I think it should be meaningful, and I think it should have purpose. If it doesn't have purpose, then it needs to be something that you just love and that you cannot live without. I think that's super important, because so many people put things on the walls and then their whole house looks like one store. But you want a story behind some of those things where it makes your house special and it makes it fresh. And over time, if the needs change, then that freshness can change.
Love that. I want a t-shirt that says, your home should be a story, not a store. I see that as being so clear. You want to be able to talk about things. If you don't have something to talk about, then it does feel a little bland, a little two-dimensional, right? So yeah. I love that.
I think texture is a great way to, like you're talking about dimension. I think it's really important for a house to feel fresh, to have different dimensions and not have everything so flat. I think texture on your walls, whether, like we talked about earlier, the seagrass wallpaper, or whether it's a 3-dimensional frame, or there's lots of things that you can do to add dimension to your space where it's not just flat. It's not just a picture hanging on the wall.
I love the shelves that you gave them to me. And I love those black shelves because they're 3-dimensional, but they also have this outer ledge where a typical shelf would just be jutting out. It had this other element to it, which gave it more interest. And I just have grown to love those. So those are the types of things that they catch your eye and they keep it there because it's something that is very interesting.
I think another way to add that texture is by adding rattan baskets, or baskets that have different textures. And that's a great space, like y'all are talking about, refreshing and keeping up all the little odds and ends around your house, decluttering. I think that's a great way to put your kids' toys, to put old family photos, to put towels, to put dirty clothes. Like, they can be clothes. Now they have all these cute baskets with lids. There's so many different ways that you can hide the things that you need. It's not necessarily clutter, but it also adds texture to your home. It adds personality to your home, but it also serves a purpose.
I'm loving all these ideas so far. I'm wondering, can you explain a little bit for us, Tiffany? Your store, you sell awesome things at the Findery, which, by the way, plug for the Findery. When I went and visited Carley in Waco, we had so much fun shopping at the Findery. I just loved all the different lighting and the different displays, because that gave me some really good ideas for things I could do. It was just great to shop. And it was so cool to see these ideas and think, oh, I want to go home and freshen up my space with this idea. And I think we can all learn from other people's ideas. I know you're saying trust your gut, and I think that is important to trust your gut. But if you really are questioning your gut feeling on how to make something look like a show-stopping floor model, like what you have in the Findery, who can I go to? Who should we as sisters go to when you need a little bit of extra help?
I think that's a great question. There's lots of different avenues for that. There's decorators like me that you don't have to pay a ton of money, that just have an eye for those things. But people are like, where do I find that? And that is something that's hard to find. There's designers that you're going to pay a lot more money that are amazing, and they're very educated in the field, and you're going to absolutely pay for it, but you're going to have the whole package. Not everyone wants to do that. But I think everyone has to have a friend or know a friend of a friend that has that eye. And they're so good at going to the store and helping you pick out things, or saying, this would go with this. And in the store, I hear that a lot. I hear girlfriends shopping together and she's like, I don't know what to get. I don't know what to get. And her friend's like, this would look good with this. And you have that black couch. This would look really good with that. I think everyone knows someone that is good at it. I think that's a great way for women to get together, and just the sisterhood of women and getting together and just helping each other with the talents that we have.
That's a super fun thought. I like that you're overhearing comments between friends at your store. What a cute exchange to witness, because it is fun too, as you get to know friends or this sisterhood that we have here. I mean, literally Carley is my sister, and now you two are sisters over the last several years because of your connection with steel. And I just think it's beautiful when you have somebody that you can know their style well enough or know the items that they have in their home so that you could have that close knit of a relationship that you could say, oh, you have a black couch or you have these metal accents, so this would go well there. And I think it's fun to watch, even like Carley and I, we have different styles than each other. We have different styles than our mom. I like watching how each sister, each woman in our family has kind of morphed into their own style. And even like with our youngest sister, Cassidy, I love seeing how her style is a little bit more fresh and colorful and bright. Whereas Carly's is, I don't even know how I would describe your style, Carley, but it's definitely more whitewashed than mine. I like more leather metals. You do leather metals too sometimes, but your style is more eclectic. That's all I could say about your style. You're shaking your head.
I'm like, you can't name my style. Ha ha ha.
That's great. I love it. I think so many times I get asked, what style am I? I think that's harder to answer these days because so many people are curating so many different styles, which I think is so fun. You don't just have to have masculine or modern or French or farmhouse. I think you can mix them. And I think that is the fun thing about it. And so eclectic is getting used a lot more, like versatile, but there's so many different styles now that go together. I love it. You don't have to stay in a box. Don't, because you can make it work.
Meanwhile, as you say, eclectic's becoming more and more common. Carley's like, no, it's not. I'm the only eclectic one.
He's not common.
I love infusing different things, but I don't have any rhyme or reason to it.
I love that word. But when you infuse things, it works really well. I think infused for you and curated go really well together for your style. And I love that. I love going in there because I was like, that is something I would never do. And I think that's what's so fun about women working together and trying to freshen up their space, because so many of us have different styles and different techniques that we can all bring it together. But you can make it work, like we said. And I love going in there and seeing what other people can do. One other way to utilize people is when you go into these stores like the Findery, you can use these employees. A lot of these employees either do the staging or they help pick out the products. And it's kind of funny because people are like, okay, I have this fireplace and this mantle and it's only 8 inches wide. And what would you do on it? Oh my gosh, when I get that question, I kind of freak out inside. But I have employees that are like, oh, let me show you. This is what I do. For me, I need a little time to let it settle in and not be stressed about what they're asking me and trying to think of every product we have in our entire 2 stores. But a lot of places have employees that are really good at that. And I think that's really fun. I love to see another employee step in and be like, oh my gosh, I have ideas. So other employees can really be helpful. So just ask when you go shopping and you're not sure, ask if there's anyone there that's good at that. Usually there is.
I think that puts a healthy amount of pressure on the employees at those stores too.
That's probably why they work there.
They want to be an expert.
They like design.
You get to choose where you work, and you work at a furniture decor store. You best have a little bit of an eye.
But even those employees, if you ask them, they're like, oh my gosh, don't ask me, but let me go find so-and-so. Let me see if they're here, because they know who's good at it and they know who enjoys it. So that's really fun to watch. And I try not to freak out too much, but I'm not real good on the spot.
You're good. I feel like you are very good with the muse. Like when someone says, this is how I feel, and you're like, okay, tell me more about you and what do you like?
I'm more about the feeling. I pray every morning over the buildings. I want people to walk in and feel the Holy Spirit. When someone walks in my house, I want them to feel happy. I want them to take in a deep breath and feel peace. I don't want people to walk into the Findery or to my home and be like, oh my gosh, where do I go? What do I do? And to feel so cluttered in their head. I want them to feel fresh, and I want them to walk in and to be able to take a deep breath and feel like, this is home. I can do this, or I can shop here because it's not so overwhelming. But for me, design is more about feel. So I think it's different for everyone, though, whether it's about the bright colors or whether you want them to feel something, or it's about the music they hear when they walk in a door. I think there's so many different aspects of style or freshening up your home that doesn't just stick to paint colors or pillows or anything like that. I think it's all about the feel.
That is super inspiring. I love that thought that you're praying over your stores. And I find a lot of joy hearing you say that. I'm wondering, are there any other inspiring stories from either your life or maybe clients' lives that you've worked with that have helped you instill confidence in your ability to design and decorate?
I think each time that I design a space at the Findery, it sounds cheesy, but I do. I pray over it, or that morning on my way to work, because I don't feel like the talent is for me. And so I do surprise myself every time that I come up with a new staging idea or a new space. I surprise myself, but it's not me. And so I always have to remind myself that and not be like, oh, I'm so good, because it is a gift that I'm given. And I think it's important to remember that. The longer that I've had the Findery, I think God has helped instill confidence in me that I am capable, because that is who He created me to be. And I was created to serve people. And that is what I want to do there. And more than design or more than freshening up your space, I think it's important to realize what your purpose is, and knowing what that purpose is, and whether it's through design or however you're serving people, that is my calling. And so that is what I want to do. And so more than anything, through experience of having the Findery or doing design jobs, I love serving God's people, letting Him bless them through that. I think that sounds cheesy, but
no, it's beautiful.
If you truly know me, that is my calling. That is how I feel. That is what I'm supposed to do.
That is so sweet. That was a beautiful explanation.
I think one thing I'll share is when I was younger, I would rearrange my bedroom every weekend. My dad allowed us at his house to paint our room whenever we wanted, which I would never allow my kids to do. But growing up, that gave us so much freedom in believing in ourselves and just the creativity of freshening up our own space. We were young. We weren't even in high school when we were allowed to do that. But through time, I lost that confidence. Just in the world, you lose who you are and what you're passionate about. Even when I had my first kid, I didn't decorate his nursery. When I had Addison, I didn't decorate her nursery. I had help doing that because I didn't have that confidence that I knew what I was doing. And then look at me now, 15 years later, and I have 2 stores and I do design jobs and I'm designing 2 restaurants. And I think it's really just believing in who you are and having the confidence that you can do anything that you put your mind to. You may not be good at it, but over time, if you're meant to do it, you will get better.
I love that. So Tiffany, what is one call to action we can issue for our sisters?
I think the best call to action is when you're brave enough, turn on your lights, put your glasses on if you need them, take a good look at your walls, and then go buy some paint. I think life changes and needs change too, as far as decorating and freshening up your house. It doesn't have to be expensive, and just start somewhere small and believe in yourself and believe in what you like. Make your house a home and make it what you love.
Thank you.
I think that sounds so fun. Like I said, I'm balanced beige throughout pretty much all of my house. There's a few popped areas that when my mom and dad come to visit, they usually will do a project since we're farther away and we don't live in Texas. It's a longer trip for them to get here and they'll help do some popped area. But now that you're making this the call to action, I have to do it. It's not my mommy doing a project for me.
Try the peel and stick wallpaper.
Yeah, peel and stick.
But make sure there's grids on the back.
Peel and stick wallpaper with grids on the back. Okay, I can look at that. In fact, maybe I should do that in my laundry room.
Oh, yeah, no, that would be a great place, Court.
Yeah, maybe that'll be my call to action.
I like Amazon's better than Wayfair's. It's better quality. It sticks better. It's better. I love it.
And go for grids on the back, huh?
Grids on the back make it easier to cut.
Okay. So Tiffany, I love that call to action. I think our last question for you, we've already talked a little bit about the Findery, but can you explain to our sisters where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on social media at the Findery Waco or online at www.thefindery.net. We also own the Boiler Room, Waco, on social media.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we have show notes included with every episode. So you can go find Tiffany's social media accounts, she just mentioned, but also visit her physical brick and mortar store in Waco, Texas. And also when you're there, I'm sure Carley would love to meet up with you. Anyway, Tiffany, we're so glad you came and joined us today. Carley, thank you for marrying Steele so that we could get Tiffany into our family.
Aww.
I know. Tiffany and Haley.
Thank y'all.
Awesome sisters. As Courtney says, sisters in love.
Sisters-in-law become sisters in love. So Tiffany, thanks again for joining us. And sisters, thanks as always for answering our call this week. We'll talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I keep muting because my dog walked up to me and started panting right next to the microphone. I was like, go away, lady.
Okay. Lady is her dog.
Oh, yes. Not you, lady.
Okay.
Not any of you
Hey,
ladies.
lady.